Someone actually wants me to start actually with Karnataka State Law University, I can start. Whatever you want, right? Shall I start with right information? Please raise your hand because
Karnataka University. Please
you want
start with
Karnataka State
Karnataka
University Act,
University
right?
Sir.
Okay. Let me start actually with Karnataka State Universities Act itself. Absolutely no problem.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, yes. And welcome to this session. I'll be speaking actually two aspects here. One is Karnataka State Universities Act, which actually governs nearly over 30 to 32 state universities, and another actually 45 actually other private universities are governed by similar enactment. So not only just actually the act, before that actually I would like to highlight the state of higher education in India. Perhaps actually you'll appreciate before we start. Where exactly do we stand as far as higher education actually is concerned? That is where I'm going to start. India actually has the highest, third largest actually education system in the world after United States of America and China. Third largest. And as per 2011 actually census, only 10% of Indians actually are graduates. Maybe perhaps actually it has gone up a bit because 2021 census actually report we do not have here, as a consequence of which we cannot exactly say what is the percentage actually of the population are graduates here. Maybe less than 20%, I would say. And it has expanded in a very fast pace actually compared to 2000 and 2001 census to 2010 and 2011 actually census. No, it added nearly in these 10 years 20,000 colleges and 8 million students in a decade. In a decade, actually, we added 20,000 colleges and nearly 80 lakh students actually got into higher education. And as of now, there are 1,200 universities. And if you break it up, you'll be able to get some 54 central universities. Maybe the data is not accurate because it's slightly older. I do not know the latest one. So when I actually found out, it was actually about 54 central universities, 416 actually state universities, 125 deemed universities, 361 actually private universities, like that. Roughly about actually 1,200 universities across India. And look at actually about 54,000, nearly 54,000 colleges actually are functioning in India, including government colleges and private degree colleges. And for your information, there are 1,800 exclusive women's colleges. So that is perhaps actually a kind of distinction as far as India is concerned, where no other country has as many women universities as we have in India. And the tertiary enrollment actually is nearly 27%. We have been struggling very hard to raise it to 30 to 40%. It is just touching actually 30%, but it has not actually gone beyond that. And 600 universities and 25,000 colleges to be accredited by NAC. So imagine almost actually 50% of the universities, they have not actually gone for the NAC for accreditation. And nearly 50% of the colleges also have not actually gone for not a single cycle actually of NAC accreditation. And the higher education enrollment is abysmally low compared to other actually countries. Almost 2/3 of our universities and 90% of our colleges are rated below average. So because compared to international standards, they are below average. That is another actually distinction we have. And here, look, about 28% of the colleges are recognized under 2F, and about 23% actually are recognized under 12B of UGC Act. You must be knowing it. What is actually 2F and what is the 12B? Recognition actually under these two sections actually will enable the college actually to get funding from the universities, a recognition actually by the universities actually for various programs. Because, though there are 54,000 colleges, the UGC cannot, as fund disbursing actually authority, consider all of them unless and until they fulfill certain of the conditions laid down actually by the university. Therefore, about 25 to 28 to 23% only. So nearly 75%, nearly 70% of the colleges cannot simply get any kind of funding from the universities. That is one thing. And the total number of students enrolled, GR, look here. India's GR, as already mentioned, 27.4%. It was 2017-18. Maybe it must have gone up actually by another 2-3%, and another 2-3%. Look at actually, compare actually India's GR with other countries. In United States of America, it's about actually 88%, and Germany about 70%, France about 65%, UK about 60%, Brazil 51%, China 49%, and there are only 2 countries below India in GR is concerned. One is Pakistan, the other one actually South Africa. Most of the other countries, I'll tell you, are above India as far as actually GR is concerned. And the post-independent actually scenario. See, after independence, what exactly is like our higher education system is. Look, about actually 1.5 crore actually students are studying in universities in 1.5 crore. It is not a small number. And out of this, about actually 12%, roughly about actually 12% are in university departments, government colleges, etc., etc. 87, nearly 88% actually the students are in affiliated colleges. Means the affiliated colleges and private colleges, I will tell you, contribute actually significantly for the higher education than the government. And women enrollment, it's a very actually good sign, I would say. 10% during independence to 41% at present. During independence, hardly 10% actually women joined the colleges. But today, I think today it must be more than 41% because I have my own actually experience in my college. So nearly 70% actually of students in my law school are girls. Only 30% actually are boys. We actually give admission on the basis of the merit, and the students who have merit take the admission. Out of this, nearly 70% actually are girls. And established, India wanted to establish at least 14 world-class universities. Maybe 1 or 2 actually come out of maybe less than a dozen, come out actually under 500 top universities in the world. And majority of the world top universities actually are in US and Europe and Singapore and some other countries. And nearly 400 universities and 10,000 college institutions have been accredited by NAC. I already told you, nearly 50% of the colleges alone and 50% of the universities alone are accredited by NAC. And look at post-independence scenario, go further. How many students really, in fact, actually every year pass out to take admission in colleges? Nearly 8 million, nearly 80 lakh students, I'll tell you, every year pass out actually from the +2, and they want to take actually admission in degree colleges, professional colleges, etc., etc. How many colleges do you have? 80 lakh students and 54,000 actually colleges. You do that simple arithmetic, you will be able to understand how grossly inadequate the higher education actually infrastructure in these countries. And these 54,000 colleges cannot simply meet this kind of a demand. And fee is abysmally low as far as actually the government and the university education is concerned. And fee ranges actually from few hundred to few thousand rupees. Maybe perhaps actually in some of the colleges, I'll tell you, it is the cost of a coffee in a cafe coffee day. And average monthly tuition fees is monthly tuition fees is 1 cup of coffee in a cafe coffee day in some of the government institutions, right? Imagine the expense, the total expenditure that is incurred to award a degree to a student actually will be met by the students only to the extent of 4% to 5%. For example, I get a degree in a university, the total amount of money that is actually spent in order to get my degree, it will be 4 to 5% only I'll be contributing for it. The remaining actually 95% actually government will be contributing it. But our budgetary allocation, as you all know, it has never crossed 3% actually of our budgetary allocations. With the 3% actually of budgetary allocations, we cannot actually take up of nearly 95% of the cost of student education. Some amount of the expenditure must be borne by the student. Anyway, we'll look into it actually later on. 5 to 6% only students will be contributing actually for their degree. Whereas in the United States and China, in US it is about 60%. The students have to bear the cost, total cost of their education. And 27, a communist China, I'll tell you, even in China, the student has to shell out nearly 27%. A democracy, a capitalist democracy in India, it's about 5 to 6%. This is the tragedy. Now, you might ask me, sir, why it should be? See, I'll tell you, the government actually has other priorities. Other priorities, and majority of the expenditure actually will go for defense, infrastructure, poverty alleviation programs, etc., etc. Education, we cannot actually afford, though Manmohan Singh, who was a teacher like us, when he was finance minister, subsequently became prime minister, tried to rise it up to 6%, but he could not do it because our commitment actually for the other issues was so high, we have not been able to cross 3% actually our budget allocation for higher education. Roughly about actually maybe 1 to 1.5 lakh crores annually we can spare for higher education. I mean education. Their substantial money actually goes to primary education because primary education actually is compulsory and obligatory, and this is a prerogative. And higher education, I'll tell you, is not for a public good. In the sense, it is private good. Why someone actually goes to the university? He goes to the university so that he can get a degree, get a good job, and actually get good earning, etc., etc. So that actually becomes the responsibility of the student who wants to go to, in fact, actually university. He has to spend it. Whereas primary education actually is for public good. A country needs, I'll tell you, educated class of people, at least literates, without whom, I'll tell you, country cannot actually prosper. Therefore, substantial money, budget allocation actually goes for primary education, not for higher education. That's it. And there are about nearly now, I'll tell you, maybe 1,000 actually autonomous college. Karnataka itself actually has got about 70 to 80 autonomous college. Autonomy was granted with the sole purpose actually of making colleges independent and responsible. But I come from actually an autonomous college. We know how actually our hands are tied. No university wants to give us actually any kind of freedom because people actually are not that generous to give up the power. They want, in fact, actually control as much as possible. So similarly, even actually autonomous colleges also are squeezed in, and they do not actually have much of a power. Education actually is a very long term actually investment. Unlike actually other investments where at least you can actually expect returns immediately, if not actually 1 or 2 years, at least actually 4 or 5 years. But education, I'll tell you something, you can expect actually a kind of a return which is actually material in form in a long term, maybe 10, 15 years, 20 years, 30 years, you might actually take to get actually good returns. So US actually a wonderful actually system of admission that you must all actually appreciate. It is called needs blind admission system, they call it. This is a system I tell you, several top universities of the US, what they do is, say for example, in biotechnology, there are 25 seats in Harvard University, say for example, and 20 seats they have to take. And these 20 seats actually are available to any person from any country. Any person actually can. And when actually some 2,000 or 10,000 applications come from different countries all over the world, the university will select only the best according to their standard, only the best. And most of them actually will not be paid hefty kind of a fee, maybe 25 lakhs, 30 lakh rupees will be the fee. Many of them actually will not be able to pay it. Those who pay and come. Those who cannot pay, the university says, we'll actually give you loan, you can actually take it. And where many of them actually take the loan, come and do the course. But some of them will be there, I can't even take the loan because I can't even actually afford to take the loan, or I can't even travel. If the candidate is so good and the university thinks that he should be here, so his fee will be waived off. His fees will be waived off because they will have plenty of actually endowment. Out of that, actually meet the expenditure. And University of America knows extremely well that someone actually gets such a degree, actually one of the top universities, that man is bound to be in US working for some company and indirectly contributing actually for American economy. This is one wonderful policy actually of America, which simply attracts the best talents of the world, provides actually all possible actually education facilities, loan and waiver, etc., and ultimately it makes voluntarily, in fact, actually choose America to work. When they work, I'll tell you, they contribute immensely to the economy. That's the reason why America actually is so rich today, because it taps the talent of the world. Look at actually the endowment, the contributions made by people like me and you who studied there to the university. So Harvard actually has got years ago, now it is not the latest figure, $34 billion, I'll tell you. This is, I'll tell you, is the budgetary allocation of certain other countries. And this is the endowment, fixed deposit, I will say. of particular university. Out of the interest of this particular $34 billion, I'll tell you, they can take care of actually many of the students who cannot actually afford the fee there. Yale about 22,000, 22.5 billion. Stanford about actually 17 billion. It is not 17 million, 17 billion, right? This is exactly the success of the system. And there are other reasons also. Look, appropriateness of tuition fees. For any course, I'll tell you, America says 100 rupees they have to spend, $100 they have to spend. They say I can contribute actually up to 30% or 40%, maximum 30%. And the remaining 70%, you student actually must bear, come, earn the degree, immediately you will get an employment, work and repay the loan. Right? That is how actually it is doing it. And there is, I'll tell you, a traditional actually policy of philanthropy. So, for example, most of the students actually pass out of these great universities and successful actually entrepreneurs later on are getting into some actually cushy jobs later. They contribute so immensely back to their actually universities, we can't even imagine, I'll tell you. So I'll tell you, Bill Gates or Warren Buffett, etc., they contribute 10 to 25% of their total wealth to the university. As a consequence of which, universities actually are not starved of money, as we find actually in India. They have enough money to, in fact, actually run the show. They do it. That's it. Look, this is a slightly older actually comparative actually tuition fee figure. You please actually see slightly older it is. Not much change, maybe little percentage must have been changed. In Austria, maximum tuition fee is actually 756. Minimum is also that. In Canada, its maximum is 5,000 and minimum is 1,366 actually US dollars. China, I'll tell you, a communist country, minimum is $518. Look, next comes India. The maximum actually is $85. The minimum is $20. I'll tell you, when you give actually $20 and get a degree, the degree actually value of the degree will be only $20. Right? You get such a useless actually degree where it will never actually fetch you a kind of a job. Because we cannot afford actually good staff, facilities, a good curriculum because lack of actually money. These are all the problems. You can actually look into, in fact, the other countries, how much do they spend, right? That's it. And look, this is the number of universities actually the population, right? Japan actually has about 12.7 actually crore population, 684 universities. It is slightly bigger than actually Tamil Nadu, Japan. 684 universities is got. I'm giving you 1,200 universities in entire India. And one state of India, I'll tell you, has got 684 universities. USA, one-fourth of our population, nearly 2,500 universities. And UK, as big as Karnataka. And it has got about actually 350 universities. Germany is as big as Tamil Nadu, about 300 universities. And India with a population of 140 crore, 1,000 actually 400 universities or 1,200 universities. You can just imagine for the kind of population, the number of universities are grossly inadequate, right? And the education cannot actually go much better. Now, after having said this, you might ask me, sir, we have such a solid actually negative picture of our higher education scenario. Then what we can do? Do you have any kind of a solution? I cannot actually categorically say what are the solutions, but I can certainly raise certain questions, not only to you, the question is also meant for me. We please actually try to look into it. Look here, how many of us, look, these are the questions. I am not asking this question to you. I am simply actually putting these questions for everyone actually who is in the teaching line in this country. How many of us actually teach from the original text, not just actually the text books, but the source books? Even today, many of the teachers, I'll tell you, they do not actually go for original textbook or the source book. They will actually go for second hand or third hand information, or sometimes even I'll tell you, some kind of a notes they got it whenever they were students. They used it actually for teaching. How many of us teach from the notes that we prepared years ago? There are still, I'm not saying you are the one. I'm saying that still there are many teachers who still actually stuck to their own actually notes, got it actually from their teachers. And how many of us actually have even seen a journal, leave alone actually opening it, of our subject? And how many of us are aware of the current advances in our subjects? See, if you buy actually latest edition of 2024 of your subject, the latest information that you will be getting in your textbook actually will be at least 6 months old. Because before actually the book actually could become a book, it takes minimum 6 months, right? So your information will be minimum 6 months old. If you want actually the latest information, last month what happened, and here just 2 months ago what happened, you will have to in fact actually consult an online journal or a regular journal. And how many of us subscribe to a magazine from our own money? Our own money, my money for my magazine. No, I use actually library magazines. That's a different thing altogether. Do I subscribe actually any magazines to by my money? How many of us actually debate about events actually in policies around us? Around us, the policies. We debate actually the current issues, right? How many of us do it and contribute actually for the betterment of the company? Similarly, how many of have even know where our past students? We do not actually care even actually for our past students, right? Where are they and what are they doing? What jobs they are doing, we are not actually aware of it. And how many of us love teaching, truly love teaching? This is a very important actually question. Many of the teachers these days actually come because of the UGC scale, leaving actually other jobs because actually this is a job I'll tell you where they can actually enjoy with plenty of actually leisure time. Compared to, for example, an IT job, the person is expected to work actually 15 to 16 hours a day. A teacher cannot, need not, right? And plenty of holidays you will be able to get. Weekends, vacations, student strike, and your own actually leave availment. All these things I'll tell you. So many people actually come here because actually of the ease of actually doing their job. That is certainly not actually acceptable because someone wants to come here and he must come here, I'll tell you, with an absolute love for teaching. That is why one of the judges was telling me years ago, a Karnataka High Court judge. He was a very honest, actually upright judge. He said, "So Suresh, I think I am getting actually more salary than I deserve." I was slightly shocked. Why you feel so, sir? Because the kind of job I do, I don't actually deserve so much of money and facilities. A very honest, actually, confession it is. So that is what I would say, even for the teachers. If you give actually very handsome actually job, many people actually leave some IT jobs, etc., come and join it. If you reduce it, still there are plenty of people who are actually very fond of teaching. Then because of love of teaching, they might even actually take up a job which actually fetches him actually a minimum salary. So I do not say this should be the policy, but I was just actually telling you how it is actually so. This is the brief actually background. Brief background with which I will tell you. I am going to, in fact, actually introduce the Karnataka State Universities Act. See, there are students here who are actually from other states also, if I am correct. There are students actually from other states, right? I was told that actually there are students from other states. Then you might ask me, sir, if you speak about actually Karnataka State Universities Act, what about others? How would they know actually their university status? Don't worry, the UGC actually has got one model university act. Any university, a university has to have their own law. The law actually should be according to the model given by the UGC. So most of the universities, 1,200 or 1,300 universities across India, they will have to have actually a similar pattern of legislation with slight changes according to their actually local conditions. Slight changes. Otherwise, the Karnataka State Law University, Karnataka State Universities Act, which I'm actually going to discuss, will be substantially the same in your universities as well, right? Wherever you come from. With slight actually changes in the nomenclature, etc., and the slight changes actually in powers, functions, etc. It's almost the same. That is what exactly I'm going to speak now. Now, how actually Karnataka State Universities Act? I'll give a brief background, then proceed further. If you go actually to Karnataka State Universities Act, this was the university, I'll tell you, which once upon a time actually controlled Karnataka, Mysore. It was earlier called Mysore University. There were three actually enactments simultaneously operating actually on Karnataka, Mysore University. So there were three universities actually in Karnataka prior to 1976, only three universities. And all the three universities actually were ruled by 4 to 5 legislation. One is Mysore University started actually in 1916. And Karnataka State, Dharwad University started somewhere actually in 1948. And Bangalore University started actually in 1964. Mysore University started actually in 1916 actually due to the initiative of Mysore Maharaja. The Mysoreans actually, the people of this region actually must be eternally grateful to Maharaja because he was sending his children UK for studies. right? Or you would hire actually teachers from London, bring them to Palace and provide actually basic education to his own children and family members. Then one fine day he thought it cannot be possible because it is my responsibility as Raja to see that actually all my actually subjects also get quality education. That is how actually he started in 1916 actually Mysore University. That is how we started Krishnaraja Sagar Dam. That is how actually started many of the industries. That is how actually started the hydroelectric projects and several of the other initiatives. But for Maharaja, I'll tell you, Karnataka would not have been what it is today. Be that as it may, and he started 1916. And at that time, a law was passed 1916. Subsequently, another law actually was passed to control it. And after some time, one more law, as a consequence of three laws, were simultaneously applying to Mysore University. But 1948, actually, when Karnataka University started, it started actually on a legislation made in Maharashtra, Mumbai, Bombay. Bombay Act actually created Karnataka State Universities. Karnataka University. And Bangalore University actually started in 1964 by legislation. In 1976, they wanted, in fact, actually bring in one uniform law for the entire actually the state, the three universities at the time. That is how actually 1976 actually universities came, and it was there for some time. But Karnataka universities, it was called Mysore Universities Act at that time. In the early 70s, actually, Mysore state became Karnataka state because nomenclature actually was changed. They wanted to bring in actually a new law because they wanted to take actually some kind of actually the latest developments to incorporate actually into act. As a consequence of which, they wanted in fact bring in a new law. At that particular point of time, the present law, which we are talking about in 2000 Act, it was introduced actually to the assembly. There was a huge discussion. And the present Home Minister of Karnataka was then Education Minister 20 years ago, 25 years ago, right? He was then Education Minister. The situation actually was so bad because the Bangalore University actually was controlled by local politicians. The syndicate, senate, and academic council actually were filled with local politicians, and they were making actually huge politics in the campus. As a consequence of which, education actually was real actually in a bad shape. Looking into the experience of the Bangalore University, the new act actually was proposed, and where the new act actually simply said there should not be any kind of a democratic actually process of selecting or electing actual persons to various bodies. So for the first time, I will tell you, in 2000 Act, democratic principles actually were thrown into it, and everyone in the syndicate, academic council, and faculty and other actually bodies, all the persons actually are nominated. Not a single one is elected. Earlier, most of them are elected. In a democratic country, I'll tell you, election actually is the norm, and nomination actually is an exception. But now, election was totally abolished because only politicians, for their personal interest, actually get into the universities, they spoil their thought. But by avoid this kind of actually politicization, when they said actually they would nominate actually the members for all these key bodies in the universities, they never knew actually one fine day only politicians will be nominated to these bodies. They never knew that. Today, I'll take any university, I'll tell you, not only in Karnataka, most of the universities in the country, except actually the central universities, most of them actually tell you members of these actually bodies are nominated, hardly elected. As a consequence of which, the writ of the government will runs to full extent in almost all universities, right? So, for example, syndicate, where I've served actually in all these bodies. I was in syndicate, I was in senate, I was actually in academic council, I was in faculty, I was in board of studies. Not only one universities, nearly half a dozen actually universities. I know all these actually how they work. Under this particular enactment, the key body, which I'm actually going to discuss, all are nominated. In academic council, not only nominated, I'll tell you about 50 people, but also some of the MLCs and MLAs will be there. And in your faculty means only two teachers. According to seniority, you will come there. No election, no outside person. In board of studies, once again, you teachers only, nominated according to your seniority, nothing else, right? So therefore, it is totally a kind of an undemocratic form of the governance in a university, fully controlled by the central government, right? Now we'll start, right? We'll try to in fact see what is actually historical background of modern universities, right? Before we come to Karnataka universities, we'll just actually try to look at actually other universities, how do they work. Modern universities. So I'll tell you, Cardinal Newman, he gave a wonderful definition actually of university. You know, university means school of universal learning. Universal learning actually is learning of that knowledge, I'll tell you, which is universal in nature. I'll tell you, say for example, you are a chemistry student means the chemistry that you study actually is the chemistry that all other students across the globe study. In India, you don't study Indian chemistry. Do you study? We study Indian history, but not Indian chemistry. Indian physics, no, nothing of the sort. So anything actually which has universal application, and that is what you study in a place, that place is called university. That is why actually the name university has come, where universal learning actually take place. You will be learning actually that the universal actual concepts which are applicable everywhere globally equal, right? That is one thing. And secondly, contribution by 1,000 schools to make a university. University means all branches of knowledge actually must be pursued in that particular one umbrella, under that particular umbrella. See, even today you take actually Oxford, Cambridge, or Yale or Harvard, whatever it is, I'll tell you. Within that particular university, all branches of law, liberal arts, science, medicine, engineering, veterinary science, and whatnot, I'll tell you, every branch actually will be within that particular university. And all these actually intellectual, actually, the assembly will be under one umbrella, and that umbrella is called university. But unfortunately, in India, there is a kind of a hybrid growth here, I'll tell you. We have kicked out all major actually branches of knowledge. We actually threw out actually medicine long back, actually we created a separate medical university. Kicked out actually technical education, we have created actually technical university. And sent out actually law and created a law university. And we have been actually veterinary science went away. Agriculture science went away. And hardly what is remaining is these are actually the 5 faculties. All of them, I'll tell you, are similar and undergrad program. One is science, BSc and MSc. The other one is arts, BA, MA, and teachers training. And science, we call it BSc and MSc, and law. There are usually only 5 faculties. And states like Tamil Nadu, I will tell you, some of them even actually sent out. So, for example, teacher education sent out, they have their own university. Physical education sent out, they have their own university. I will tell you, all these learning centers have become actually small islands without actually having any kind of a contact with each other and without knowing actually what's happening actually in other branches of knowledge. This is not actually the traditional concept actually of university. This is not so. And not only that, I'll tell you, university means where intellect may safely range and speculate. And university, I'll tell you, professor, where he must be absolutely left free so that actually his intellect actually can simply fly and actually take a solid actually around the globe. He can think anything, he can actually conceive anything, he can create anything, he is absolutely free. Speculate anything. When you give so much of freedom, I'll tell you, the inventions actually take place. Creativity comes into picture. I can't hold a gun on your head and say, write a poem. Will you ever write a poem if I hold a gun on your head? Poem will not come, something else will come. On the other hand, if I say, please actually write a poem, don't ever actually come to the college or don't do anything for next actually 4 or 5 days. When actually intellect freely actually simply just actually range around safely, it will be able to in fact actually create something which is really valuable. So today, you all actually studying, teaching actually in the university level and college level, that kind of a freedom, I'm sure I'll tell you, is not freely available. Is there anyone actually who can boast saying that, no, sir, I have freedom, I can do anything? Anybody, please, will you raise their hands? Someone who can say, I'm absolutely free, sir. There's absolutely no bondage, nothing of this kind. Hardly you find time, I'll tell you, these days to teach. Because there is one idea known as NAC, which has come, I'll tell you, where will actually allow you to teach. You'll have to do actually documentation for NAC. By the time you finish the documentation, you will hardly left actually with any time for the purpose of teaching and research. So this is a very unfortunate thing. And they also say university is a seat of wisdom. Wisdom lies there, and it is the light of the world. If the government actually has a problem actually in its fiscal policy, it can go to university, ask actually some financial experts. Look, this is the problem. Give me a solution. The financial expert in the university who has actually studied everything about finance will be able to give them actually some kind of a knowledge or a clue as to how it could be done. So perhaps actually in America it has. So now Trump actually has become president. He has absolutely no binding that only some person actually should become a finance secretary or a foreign secretary or defense secretary. He can choose anybody. Say for example, he needs actually a foreign secretary. He will go to some of the top universities of America, finds actually an international professor who has taught actually for 40 years, who has every thing of foreign relations he knows. You bring that person, you makes him as foreign secretary. Next 4 years, I'll tell you, the person actually knowing fully well the global politics will be advising the president. But in India, it is absolutely contrary because you'll have to choose and give a person a portfolio. Otherwise, you might actually not able to, in fact, run the government. Your government may collapse. We have seen actually many of uneducated people have become education ministers. Some people who do not know anything about finance have become actually finance ministers. Hardly know anything about actually the agriculture, they become agriculture ministers. So this is very, very unfortunate. As a consequence of which, we will be run by actually babus, this bureaucracy. The bureaucracy they are only administrators, they are not experts. The knowledge actually like people like you have, because your constant actually studies and upgradation of your knowledge, you cannot actually contribute anything. That is one thing. And the establishment of Oxford and Cambridge in 19th century it was established. And University of London was established in 1836. King's College was established in 1831. And affiliating system actually started. You know what is affiliating system? When actually University of London was started, the headquarters actually was in London. But what about the surrounding districts and actually counties? You could not actually start a college there. Therefore, they started affiliating system. The university will be in London, and a college actually will operate actually in a county affiliated to London University. This is how actually the affiliating system came. And India, there are only 6 countries in the world today who have the affiliating system. And nearly 185, 190 countries, I will tell you, they don't have any affiliating system at all. If a college actually grows up to a particular level, I will tell you, it becomes a university by itself. Unlike, the university is 100 years old and its first college actually is 98 years old. Still, 98 years old actually college will be under that university, right? This is unfortunate. The affiliating system. Then comes actually in India, how actually modern universities came into picture. So in 1854, they decided that India must actually have a university in India. As a consequence of which, they had to establish actually 3 universities. That is Madras, Bombay, and Calcutta. 3 universities. 1857 they started. Earlier to this, there were actually some local universities, 1 or 2 colleges, not universities. Colleges were there. You know why actually these universities are established? Because they could actually find such cultural diversity and vernaculars. There is diversity in vernaculars, the languages. In order to preserve this actually language, the British actually government thought that it can be preserved when there is actually an organized actually kind of a setup. The organized setup could be only a university. As a consequence of which, they established the universities so that actually they can protect these vernaculars. So these 3 universities, 1857, Bombay, Calcutta, and Bombay, they were established. And University of Allahabad was established in 1887. And after that, our large ripples are reviewed. They increased actually affiliated colleges. And affiliated colleges will tell you increase. I'll tell you, Mysore University till recently had nearly more than 200 colleges actually as affiliated colleges. Once Osmania University in Hyderabad, I'll tell you, had 700 colleges actually as affiliate colleges. They could not even actually hold exam, announce the results actually within the time. The result had to be delayed because 700 colleges, lakhs of students holding exam, evaluation, and processing them, announcing the results, they would run out of the time, right? And actually, they were always actually run behind the schedule. So that was the problem. But however, we had to do it because we could not actually start the universities. So number of affiliate colleges increased, and the British Parliament took a decision. Education actually must be transferred to Indian actually provincial council so that they can actually take care of it, start new universities. This is one very important thing. So modern universities, you must actually, I must always quote, I'll tell you, Benares Hindu University, a classic example. Madan Mohan Malaviya was responsible, in whose name I'll tell you, the present actually academic staff college actually has been named. He started actually one pure university of Indian origin. It is not a British university. That is Benares Hindu University, 1915. The king of Benares actually donated more than 1,000 acres of land. So he was a high school teacher. He wanted, in fact, actually thought of, establishing a university and provide a college education. Then when he approached the king actually gave land, but he wanted money to, in fact, actually establish infrastructure. He traveled across India and talking to all philanthropists to collect money so that he could actually start. He came to Mysore also and approached Raja. Raja also gave actually a lot of money. Like that, many people came. So he went to Nizam of Hyderabad. Hyderabad, Nizam actually was not very favor of actually the local university. When he went, actually asked, you'll have to donate, you being actually Nizam, because Nizam actually at that time was one of the richest person on earth, for your kind information. At that time, he was one of the richest man on earth. Not only that, he had highest number of wives. Believe it or not, 500 in number. 500 wives and richest man. He thought actually he could contribute, right? He went. But Nizam did not actually encourage. You know what actually Nizam did? He took out actually his footwear and dropped the footwear into the bag, which he offered to, in fact, contribute money. He dropped. This is all I can contribute, he said. And he said, thank you very much for your kind cooperation, actually, Madan Mohali said, and came to Charminar, actually, Sakkar. He said, I wanted to start actually a university in Benares. I approached your benevolent the Nizam. The Nizam actually has contributed immensely, but unfortunately, I can't use actually his contribution directly. Therefore, I am actually auctioning his contribution. Those who are interested, they can come and take it. So when he was auctioning actually the footwear of Nizam, Nizam heard this matter. Immediately called him back, took his actual footwear and contributed little money. That is how actually Benares Hindu University became. And it is still actually, it is a central university now. In 2000, actually, they made it a central university. A huge campus, actually, 1,000 acres of land. A wonderful actually university. And subsequently, universities of Baroda and Mysore, 1916. Mysore and Baroda Maharajas, they were very close, related. They started simultaneously. One university in Mysore, the other one actually in Baroda. And Andhra University in 1926, they started. At that time, Vice Chancellor actually was something excellent, I think. Ashutosh Mukherjee, a prominent figure. Lakshman Swami Mudillar, an intellectual. C.R. Reddy, another actually great personality. And Radhakrishnan, needless to say, subsequently became president. They were all actually professors teaching, and they became vice chancellors. Because of these wonderful personalities, the earlier actually universities actually could make name because these great personalities actually converted actually their universities into great institutes of learning, right? And one more thing, many actually of the union central minister, when they were offered actually university vice chancellorship, they resigned actually the minister's post and came and joined. That was actually the attraction of university. And some of the professors, when they were asked to become vice chancellor, they said, I'm the last person to do it because that's a clerical job, I don't do it. Professors actually had that kind of status. Now, what is the situation? You know better than me, I don't want to explain it. And establishment of UGC, right? So the university UGC was established in 1956. It was established actually on the model of British the UGC system, where UGC was established under the recommendation of Dr. S. Radhakrishnan. University Grants Commission was there actually in UK. On those lines, we'll have to have one. And UK they created, though that actually the government funding actually can be routed through a particular body to the colleges and the universities. The government cannot do it. They wanted a body. That body actually is the University Grants Commission. And he established, he recommended a structure. And 1952, the government actually decided all cases pertaining to allocation of grants in it be referred to UGC. The UGC will recommend as to which college should be provided actually some kind of a grant, which should not be provided. And if it is to be awarded through only UGC, it could be awarded. So with 28 sections, UGC Act in 1956 came into existence. And it was formally established in 1956 November with 6 regional centers, one in Pune, Hyderabad, Kolkata, Bhopal, and Guwahati and Bangalore. Now I'll tell higher education council they are going to call it now. It is not going to be any more UGC. It is undergoing actually plenty of changes in the coming days. UGC is simply doing actually kind of a nominal kind of a job now. And what exactly is the mandate of UGC? What actually is supposed to do? Promoting and coordinating university education. University education should be promoted, and a huge country like this with more than 1,200 universities, you will have to coordinate. This body coordinates. Determining and maintaining standards of teaching. What should be the minimum standard of teaching in a university or in a college? The UGC actually will decide. And framing regulations for minimum standards of education. In order to award a degree, what should be the minimum actually standard? What actually tests or examination you must undergo? What actually kind of the tutorials you must actually undergo? What kind of actually study you must undergo, research you must undergo? All these things actually will be decided by UGC. You cannot actually decide. UGC gives actually a big framework. Within university, you can actually refine it, change slightly, but not beyond the scope of UGC direction. And monitoring the developments on the field of collegiate education. Because large number of colleges are coming up. There's a huge demand actually for college education. It has to be regulated actually, then monitored. The UGC does it. Serving as a vital link between union and state. So if there is one link which connects actually the central government to the state government, that is this one. This is UGC. And advising the central government and the state government on the measures necessary for improvement of university education. Because the education actually comes in concurrent list, not only central list, but also in state list and concurrent list. Means both central government as well as state government simultaneously legislate actually on education. Of course, the domain actually is clearly earmarked. So, but they require actually some kind of an advice, because it is an intellectual actually body, UGC. Only the learned people actually will be there in the UGC. So they will offer advice as to how actually a college education, university education should be navigated. They'll be able to advise. And coming to Karnataka, as already mentioned, the Mysore University under 1916 Act and 33 Act and 56 Act. These are the 3 enactments, Mysore University. And Karnataka University 1949, it is not 1947, it is 1949 under that particular act. Bangalore University 1964. And Uniform Act they wanted to bring, they bring that. So under Prof. Ken Raj, a committee was constituted actually in 1976 to bring change. And that chairman of that committee made a wonderful observation. They are applicable even now. He said university education in early 70s is in a bad shape because of these reasons. What are these reasons? Look, these are the reasons. Appointment of VC on community and caste basis. I'm talking about actually 50 years story, 55 years. Even 55 years ago, I'll tell you, the casteism actually was playing a dominant role. Not today. Not today. I'll tell you, it took for long back. Early 60s itself it took place. Secondly, VCs use their office for filling their men. VCs actually use their office, vice chancellors, to fill actually men into teaching and non-teaching posts. Nominations for Senate syndicate AC on extraneous consideration. So the government actually started filling, actually nominating the people who worked for the government, worked for their particular party. If you carefully observe, I'm not actually going to tell you, please actually of your own university, see actually the members of the Senate, I'm sorry, syndicate, members of the academic council. You will be able to understand how actually some people have been nominated on extraneous grounds without actually looking into their intellectual or educational caliber. Please actually look into your own university, so you'll be able to understand. And Bangalore University, when they wanted to start in 1964, they thought it's going to be a central university. Unfortunately, it did not even become a municipal university. When they wanted to make a central university, it ended up actually one municipal university. And malpractices, allegations, and corruptions these days actually take birth in the university. Show me one bloody university anywhere in the country where it doesn't actually have some kind of a financial irregularities, etc., etc. Every university and many of the vice chancellors actually are expecting that they would be sent to jail actually for malpractices and irregularities. Most of the vice chancellors before going home, they think they might have end up actually in a jail because of their actually commissions and omissions, right? And next malpractices and due to commission and omissions, innumerable court cases. Even today, you'll find hundreds of cases will tell you pending in various actually courts because of irregularities. Therefore, he said all three universities present a careless picture. Unless the present trend is arrested, students of Karnataka would be severely handicapped, right? He said way back in 1976. As a consequence of which, the present act came. But his recommendation was not fully accepted. Another committee actually was constituted, Navneet Rao Committee, in 1984. He gave some suggestion. Basing on suggestion, this actually act came into picture. This is, I'll tell you, when this act actually came into existence, it came actually, it was a very kind of an adventurous actually kind of a story because the ruling government actually had an absolute majority. And the opposition actually is very, very weak and without actual numbers. When this bill actually was placed, opposition actually members raised huge and they tried to prevent. So the government actually came to a kind of an understanding with the opposition, saying that whether you agree or don't agree, we are going to place it and we get actually passed because they have majority. But if you keep quiet, it will allow you to in fact actually make your observation. At last, the opposition agreed and entered into a kind of a debate because if we look into, in fact, actually Vidhan Sabha debates of 2000 actually one, you will be able to see under what circumstances actually this act came into existence. And all the members who spoke, they said how actually democracy has been butchered in this particular act. Only the government's actually writ actually runs here. And at last they agreed because they did not actually have the majority to oppose it, and that actually became a law, right? That's how it came into existence in 2001, and it is called Karnataka Universities Act 2000, right? With 16 chapters, 86 sections, it is actually a comprehensive law. Then look, you as teachers, this is one principal law you must know actually of your university. Wherever you are from, I do not know. Wherever you are from, you must actually try to go through your university's act because that is the principal act actually which governs your teaching, your profession, your university, and your life as well. So you need to know what exactly the university says. Unfortunately, this is not actually made mandatory to know every teacher before you accept actually assignment in a college or university education. You need to know. That is why this MMTTC has introduced this particular actual act so that you will be knowing what exactly the university is all about. Right? Let me just actually try to see what exactly it is. So I just briefly explain 86 section. I'm not actually going to explain. So I think will someone tell me what time actually this session is supposed to end? Someone actually unmute and tell me.
3:15, sir. 3:15.
3:15 to
Yes.
3:45 break, no?
Break, yes, sir.
Yes. Yeah, I'll try to finish it off actually in another 20 minutes time. I think I have another 20 minutes. I'll try to in fact explain what it is, right? So, okay, establishment of the university. Each university, not only just Karnataka State University, all other universities. There are at present actually 84 universities in Karnataka. Private, deemed, public, central university, all included. 84 universities actually in Karnataka. And at least 35 legislations actually are governing 84 universities. 84 universities. This is for your information. Moving further, university. And most of these 84 universities have a similar kind of a provision. A similar kind of a provision with small change actually in nomenclature. Sometimes they call it syndicate. Sometimes they call it as some other name. Sometimes they call it syndicate. Sometimes they call it management committee, something like that, whatever it is. But functions actually almost appear to be same. Look, each university has a territorial jurisdiction. You must understand. Every university has a geographical limitation. I actually, as University of Mysore, cannot operate in Mumbai or Calcutta. I must operate only within my actual geographical limitations. Earlier, Mysore University, in fact, actually had its jurisdiction over Mysore, Chamarajanagar, Hassan, and Mandya. Now I will tell you, Mysore University has jurisdiction only within the city limits, about 35 colleges or 40 colleges. Because couple of years ago, each district actually obtained one university. Chamarajanagar University has got only 18 colleges. There is one university in Kurg called Kodagu University. It is in a forest, I'll tell you. You'll have to fly to reach that university. And it has got actually maybe around actually 20 25 colleges or something. Earlier it was actually under Mangalore University, right? Because it is very difficult these days actually find a land near to actually a town. Therefore, wherever they find land, they establish it, right? Whether it is forest or a barren land or actually an island, they establish. You will have to go and actually approach that particular university. So now, most of the 31 districts actually have a university. But status is very different. Many of the university vice chancellors do not have a car. They have to drive their own car. And many of the universities do not have a building. They are actually living in a borrowed building. And many of the universities actually do not have all statutory offices. At least actually 1 dozen statutory offices must be there. No, there are 3 permanent people. One is vice chancellor, one is registrar, one is actually registrar evaluation. Because whether there are students or not, you will have to administer it. Whether there are students or not, you will have to hold examination. Whether examinations are conducted or not, some results have to be announced. Right? This is a pathetic condition. I'm sorry. I'm highly critical. Don't mistake me. This is how actually the universities are functioning. You have to forgive me for that. What are the powers of the university? Provide instruction. Means you'll have to teach. Once you teach, after that, what you should do? Once you teach, you must examine them. No, if I teach means I must actually hold an examination. The university must do it. And the third and the most important duty of a university is to conduct research. You have to teach, you will have to examine them, then you have to do research, because that is where research actually takes place in the university. And the fourth one actually is confer honorary degrees. Honorary degree is a degree is given to a man who has done excellent actually service, or in some areas actually of human knowledge. He has worked actually so hard, but not actually under a traditional university. That man actually deserves to be respected actually with an honorary degree. What is actually called honoris causa, right? That is to be given. And nextly, administer colleges and hostels. It becomes the responsibility. University colleges and hostels should administer. Collect fee, whatever little fee that you collect, you must collect it. And accept endowments. If generous people like you give actually any kind of donation, accept it. And maintain discipline. This is very, very important. Universities actually must maintain discipline. These days, actually, maintaining discipline actually is not at all difficult. You know why? Luckily, we have these days actually mobile phone. If each one is allowed to use mobile phone, no one actually is going to create a problem. Say, for example, in your class, there are some mischievous students. You really want to control them, allow them to use their mobile phone. They will spend wonderful time actually looking into their actually social website actually, and without creating any problem, they sit quietly. So that actually for other students, they can actually peacefully teach, right? This is one thing. Luckily, this mobile was invented after independence. Had it been invented actually before independence, perhaps actually would not have got independence at all, because each person would have got his independence through his mobile, right? Luckily. I know as teachers how difficult for you to in fact actually maintain student discipline, control actually the mobile may not be that actually. The university is open to all classes of people. All classes of people. There is no discrimination, right? Everybody. And the state government earlier, prior to 2000 Act, the government did not actually have any control at all. It would give actually some funding to the university, and the universities had to administer that. But Section 10 actually of the present act says any decision the university takes shall be approved by the government. Means university cannot take a decision without the consent of the government. It comes absolutely under the control of the government. That's one thing. Look, these are the officers I need not explain. The chancellor, the governor actually is the chancellor. So he is the chancellor, I'll tell you, under the constitution is appointed only to, in fact, actually as a person representing the central government, and see that actually state is within the limits actually of the constitution, doesn't go beyond actually the boundaries actually of the constitution. So he is actually a kind of a central actually authority, central government authority to control the state, not to in fact go away. But at the same time, the same person is also allowed to be the chancellor. He is the person who at the top actually of the university administration. In Karnataka, in Kerala, they have divested actually the chancellor's power in certain of the universities, right? Where chief minister himself actually becomes the chancellor. Second, pro-chancellor. Pro-chancellor usually will be the education minister, right? He's a pro-chancellor. And the vice-chancellor. Needless to say, he is the key person who has all the powers to administer actually the college, and he can take any decision within the powers of the vice chancellor and the limits of the act, and subsequently in fact get the approval of the university, I mean respective body. Registrar is one, I'll tell you, who is an expert in administration. Usually the vice chancellor actually will be an academician, right? He knows only something about actually of his particular subject, and academically he is very sound, but may not be that good actually in administration. So therefore, what actually the government thought was, we'll have to have a good administrator, a experienced man who is good at actual administration. So therefore, they thought that actually they could appoint an IAS officer as an administrator, subordinate body to a person to the vice chancellor, and subsequently registrar evaluation. Registrar evaluation, I'll tell you, is a person who is in charge of the examination actually of the university examination system. A university gets actually its credibility only because of its examination system. You all know it, I'll tell you. If the examination system actually is not transparent and efficient, the university reputation actually will go to dogs, as we all know it, right? And moving further, there will be deans, who are there, I'll tell you, and librarian, whether you have a big library or not. If you are a university, you're supposed to have a library, and when you have a library, you're supposed to have a librarian. And finance officer, whether you can generate money or not, you will have to have a finance officer to manage actually the government funds and the fee collected, and director of PME board. So here policy making, monitoring it, and evaluation of it. So earlier this office wasn't there. Now they made an office so that actually any policy of the government, I mean university, how it is working, it has to monitor and evaluate whether to have this policy or change of this policy. There will be a separate actually a wonderful body to keep a tag on that. So if the policy doesn't work, they can change the policy, right? That's it. And there will be a director of student welfare, because thousands and thousands of students will be there. Their welfare has to be taken, so there will be an officer. There will be a college development council. This college development council actually has to be there because a huge number of affiliate colleges will be there under each university. So the college development council actually is a link between the university and the affiliating colleges. And the director of physical education. Physical education is part of university. And you will have to have actually a person to head that education. There will be a director of physical education. And besides this, you can have any other actually kind of officer as you wish, right? I'll take each one of them actually rush through that. I have another 10-15 minutes to do it. First one is chancellor. Governor actually is the chancellor and head. He shall have the powers as may be conferred. He has a certain of the powers, and overall control actually will be with the chancellor under section 12 of this particular act. And there will be pro-chancellor under section 13. Pro-chancellor actually is the education minister. If you please look at this particular provision, section 13, it says, the minister in charge of higher education by virtue of his office, he shall preside over the convocation in the absence of chancellor. If the chancellor cannot preside over convocation, this pro-chancellor actually must come and actually preside over. That is all the power of the pro-chancellor. But he has the real power. I'll tell you later. There is inter-university board in Karnataka, inter-university board. Means all the universities actually are in this particular committee, and that is headed by whom? The pro-chancellor, education minister. And any decision of the inter-university board is binding on the university. If you look at it, I would say a pro-chancellor actually is more powerful than the chancellor, because any decision which he insists in inter-university board can be executed because it is binding on all the universities. Vice Chancellor. Selection mode actually is always actually a controversial issue. Usually there will be 4 people. Now UGC is proposing a new actually formula. State, it constitutes a search committee to find a vice chancellor. There will be 4 people representing a UGC, state, university, and the chancellor, right? Representing 4 these actually authorities. There will be 4 actual search committee members. They will actually go through all the applicants, and these 4 people should not be connected actually with university or any other college which comes within that purview of that particular university, because they should be unbiased. And once looking into all the applicants, maybe 50, 100 or whatever it is, they'll make a list actually of 3 universities, 3 names, and that will be recommended to the government. The government, according to this provision, in consultation with the chancellor, must actually finalize one name, and that person actually becomes a university. Once actually an appointment is made, that should not be questioned in a court of law, except there are serious violations of law. But unfortunately, what happens is, many of the cases in Karnataka I have seen, where the government actually recommends, in government I'll tell there will be 2 people, higher education minister and a chief minister. They concur actually with one person. Send it to the university, chancellor to nominate this person. And the chancellor actually would pick the 3rd name, which was not selected actually by the government, and he will announce it. This is a huge problem, because the law says in consult. I mean, all the 3 people, the higher education minister, the chief minister, and the governor should come to the conclusion as to who should be selected. Right? Basing on that, it should be done. But unfortunately, it is not done. These are the What are his powers? He's a principal executive and ex-officio chairman and academic council and syndicate. I'll tell you, he's the chairperson, and perform all actions. He can take any kind of an action within the framework of law. And if it is not actually passed by appropriate actually bodies, after taking a decision, retrospectively, you can actually take it to the body and get it passed. In emergency, I'll tell you, in emergency power, he has got in emergency powers, you can actually for temporarily appoint a non-teaching staff or a teaching staff temporarily and take a decision, subsequently get the approval temporarily. It is not actually permanent. Therefore, he is the man who is driving force actually of the university. Right? Next comes the registrar. Registrar actually will tell you, according to that, he shall be an officer of all India service. In Karnataka, what happened? They appointed IAS officer. But IAS officer found actually no charm in this post. In university, sitting like a clerk without much power. They did not like it. And there were some problems because they tried to exercise the powers they wanted to exercise, which could not be taken. And IAS actually lobbied, took a decision. No IAS officer will actually accept any university assignment, they said. They refused to come. Then they started collecting actually IPS officers. These IPS officers actually came to university and thought that university is a police station. They started actually running the university like police station, and many of the vice chancellors said, no, it cannot be. They requested not to post actually police officers. Then only other service left out actually was our ISS, Indian Forest Service. When they were appointed, they thought university is a forest. They started actually, in fact, administering actually thinking that it's a forest. And they wanted to put a fence here and put actually a kind of a plant over there. They never thought actually it is an academic exercise, they must do it. And university found it extremely difficult to manage with these people. At last, actually, there are some changes where now some university professors actually are being appointed to do this job, right? Look at his power. An officer of All India Service, member secretary of Academic Council and Syndicate. Member secretary means he has to do that clerical job, and he is the custodian of records and convene meetings. He is like a glorified clerk. All records will be under his custody without actually taking any decision on them. And nextly, convene meetings. Like a secretary, he has to convene the meetings. And next is officers of the university, what other officers, registrar evaluation. Evaluation system department is a very, very important department. So evaluation. Usually earlier, actually, there used to be one Karnataka State Administrative Service officer they used to appoint. Now you can appoint actually KS officer or a professor, you can actually be there. Finance officer usually will be from state finance. I mean, state accounts, where someone actually knows the accounts very well. Deans. No, these are the deans, I'll tell you. They represent 5 faculties. So, Dean of Arts, Science and Technology, B.Ed and Law, and some. These are the 5 actually things. Commerce, 5 deans. And library actually is the head of the library. And director planning, I have already mentioned. Director of CDC is College Development Council. There will be physical education actually thing here. And these are the body. Syndicate body, I will tell you, as present now, about 18 to 20 people will be there. Only 18 to 20. All of them are nominated. This is the principal actually decision taking body. It can take actually any decision within the ambit of the act and subsequently implement it, right? So I'll take another 5 minutes to conclude this, or shall we have it after tea? Someone actually unmute and speak. If you feel like actually having a cup of tea, you haven't come, then I'll conclude and go to RTI. You must tell me. Please unmute and speak.
ಇದು ಇನ್ನು 5 ನಿಮಿಷ ಮುಗಿಯುತ್ತೆ ಸರ್ ಇದು
5 ನಿಮಿಷ ಹಾಕಿಲ್ಲ, ಇನ್ನೊಂದು 7-8 ನಿಮಿಷ ಬೇಕಾಗುತ್ತೆ.
ಕಂಪ್ಲೀಟ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಸರ್, ತೊಂದರೆ ಇಲ್ಲ, ಮಾಡಿ ಸರ್.
ಬಂದ್ರ
ಇದೀನಿ ಸರ್.
ವೆರಿ ಗುಡ್.
ಕಂಪ್ಲೀಟ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಸರ್, ಕಂಪ್ಲೀಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬಿಡಿ ಸರ್, ನಂತರ ಬ್ರೇಕ್ ತಗೊಳ್ಳಿ.
ಮಾಡ್ತೀನಿ. And faculties, there are 5 faculties and they will be appointed. Planning and monitoring committee I have already mentioned, right? So what exactly these are the laws that will be there. One is statute. So these are the 5 kinds of actually laws that will be there in the university. You must be very carefully understand. One is statute. See, I'll tell you, in law, statute means something, I'll tell you, which is the highest actually of the rule, or highest kind of a noun. And ordinance is much lower. Regulation is much lower. And the least actually rule is called rules. Right? These are the 5 things. But University Act actually has a specific meaning. Statutes means it constitutes various bodies, Senate, syndicate, academic council. For that, you will have to have a statute. The law that actually creates these bodies are called statutes. Honorary degrees should be given to some people. Who is that person who is qualified to be given the degree? The statute describes. Convocation, withdrawal of degree, faculties, affiliation, all of them actually come to statute. And ordinances, student admission, the rule is called ordinance. The degree diploma, it is called ordinance. Examination, ordinance. Management of colleges, ordinance. Regulation actually come into picture regarding admissions and recognition of degrees. And rules actually are meeting notices, procedures not provided by any other thing. These are the kinds actually of laws that actually operate in the university. University funds, most of it actually comes from the university. Annual accounts, the government itself actually conducts. Financial estimate is nothing but budget of the university. I'll tell you a funny thing, because usually it is actually done in the academic council. I used to be in these actually committees. The university discusses and actually approves a budget. We are going to spend 400 crores for this, that, etc., etc. They say all these things. If the government gives money, that has some meaning. If the government doesn't give money, your 400 crore actually budget actually is nothing but a piece of actually paper fit enough to be thrown into a dustbin, right? That's it. And financial estimate, that is it. Power of the government to direct audit. If the government finds that actually university is doing some kind of irregularity, it can direct actually for the auditing. Annual report, appointment of teachers, appointment according to the promotion scheme. These are all common things, you should know it. I want to in fact actually speak here couple of things. One is honorary degrees. Honorary degrees actually are given for those people who have done something extraordinary service, which have to be recognized, I'll tell you, through a degree. For Shivaram Karanta, I'll tell you, did not get a university degree. But he has done so much of work, I'll tell you. One university could not actually do so much of that. One person has done it, right? Such persons actually will be given honorary degrees. But honorary degrees these days, I'll tell, lost meaning. That is why the governor's office actually has an issue that not more than 3 people in each university should be given actually awarded honorary degrees. Otherwise, the dozens actually of people would be getting honorary degrees, right? That is one thing. There will be Karnataka State Inter-University Board. All universities actually come together. They make a board. The person who presides over that Karnataka State University Board is Pro-Chancellor. That is the Education Minister. Whatever decision he takes, it is binding on them. Now comes to the teacher. What are the duties of a teacher? Duties of a teacher is to teach, examine, conduct research, and actually help the university functioning properly. Here, many of our teachers actually they say we do not want to evaluate the answer scripts unless we are paid actually a kind of an additional remuneration. But UGC scale involves actually examination work also. But anyway, there is a long drawn out battle as a consequence of which the government agreed. Even if you get actually UGC scale, you will be given actually money. And what about actually private tuition? Can you handle private tuition? This act actually says if any person does not perform examination duty, he will be punished with actually 3 years imprisonment and 2,000 rupees fine. If you don't do your examination duty, you will be sent to jail for 3 years and 2,000 rupees fine. If you hold any private tuition, it simply says private tuition is to be prohibited. If you do it, what will be done? It has not actually spoken. But Karnataka Education Act actually says if someone actually who is taking salary actually from the government, if he engages actually in tuition, some action should be taken, right? This is exactly it is. This is what exactly is roughly about, briefly about Karnataka State Universities Act. Similar is the case, I'll tell you, in all other actually 1,200 universities. This claim changes actually in dimension. There, I don't say, I'll tell you, all the universities actually are not good. But there are plenty of actually good universities. It's because of the leadership and because of the people actually who had it. The university is bad because actually we have not been able to get actually good a teacher. I think I should stop here. If there are any questions, anyway, I'll be going to take actually another